Hey everybody, Captain Lou here with another edition of Tigers Daily in partnership with the Fan Arch Network. Happy Tuesday, August the 4th, 2026. Hey, before we get started, a reminder for those of you that haven't subscribed, we invite you to subscribe to the channel, which is Tigers Daily. We talk all things Detroit, the good, the bad, and everything in between. We talk about the latest rumors, what's going on and off the diamond. And of course, we talk about the games from the day before and take a sneak peek at what's to come for the Tigers in the future. For those of you that have subscribed, I say thank you very much. The response, especially the last few days, has been absolutely amazing. The viewership's been off the charts. So excited to see that. And the banner back and forth has been phenomenal. Passionate fans, that's what you are. The Tiger fan base is one of the most passionate in all of sports. There's no doubt about it. The numbers speak for themselves. I'm just a Tigers fan right there with you. So let's continue to have some fun here on Tigers Daily. Episode 34 starts right now. All right, the trade deadline, the dust is settled. The deadline is passed. Saturday night, of course, the first big domino of the fall, the ultimate domino to fall. During the seventh inning, it was announced that Tarik Skubal was going to the Dodgers. Zyhir Hope, River Ryan, Brady Smith, they came in return for the Tigers. And then yesterday, at the 12th hour, right at the last second, Casey Mize, it was announced, going to the Padres. In return, Detroit gets their number 2 prospect, Cash Mayfield. Jackson Wolf coming to Detroit as well. Gage Workman from Toledo in Detroit's organization going to the Padres. So that's the trade. Those are the trades for the Tigers. Whether they got a good enough haul, that's for us to discuss. That's what the banner back and forth is going to be all about. It just matters how you look at it. Cash Mayfield, as we mentioned, the number 2 prospect, he'll more than likely report to the West Michigan Whitecaps. He's got a pretty decent fastball, not lights out. He's a strikeout pitcher. So, again, that seems to be the theme for the Tigers here at the deadline. As we mentioned, he'll report to the Whitecaps. His go-to pitch is the changeup. So we'll keep an eye on that. I know the Tigers would like to get that fastball up. Right now it tops out about number 94, maybe 95. So we'll see what happens with that. Obviously, he's a pitcher down the road. So Casey Mize going to the Padres. So it begs the question, and we'll get right into it. What, in your opinion, what are your grades on the trades? I know it's going to range widely here, and there's no right or wrong answer. It just depends on how you feel. And, this is difficult. For me, it is, because I could see both sides of it. And I can see both sides of the argument. And I go back and forth on this. I really do. Obviously, I want the Tigers to win now. We haven't won a World Series in 42 years. Detroit being only 2.5 games out of a wild card spot, right there in the playoff hunt. Heck, they're only 5.5 games out of first place in the American League Central. So, yeah, they're not out of it. Not yet. So one wonders, why did they make the trade? Well, it's a pretty good bet Skubal was not coming back to the Tigers. Now, you watch and listen to the press conference yesterday from Scott Harris, and I give him credit. He was front and center with it. Some GMs wouldn't give the press conference that he gave yesterday. I'm not absolving him. I'm not praising him, but I will give him credit for that. Now, he said that there were talks a couple of years ago, and the extension that Detroit offered, according to Boris, his Skubal's agent, was 4 years for about $75 million. Low ball offer, more than likely, but that's part of negotiations. They countered with an 8-year extension, but then they also said that they wanted to test free agency, and there was no more bargaining afterwards. So that told Scott Harris that that he needed to get something for him right away. He wasn't coming back to Detroit. That was his reasoning. Whether you agree with it or not, that's up to you. Now, again, would I have loved to see him stay in Detroit? Absolutely, I would. But I also am trying to be a realist here. And Detroit was only going to get a compensatory pick for him and for Mize. Mize is a free agent as well. I would have not signed Skubal on an 8-year extension. I know obviously he would have 6 years left after this year. That's a long time now for ball players, for pitchers especially. I wouldn't have signed that extension. And who knows, maybe if they offered him a 6-year extension. I don't know. Again, it's his word. You take him for what his word is. Now, they asked Harris, when did they decide to be sellers? And he said it was right after that game against Baltimore last Wednesday when they blew that lead. He decided, the time is now to be a seller with the deadline coming up. So they got good prospects. Again, that polarizing word, that lightning rod word. I think Detroit's got good prospects. I think River Ryan will be in the rotation for the Tigers. Excuse me. Towards the middle of August, right after he's off the disabled list. He'll make one rehab start, probably in the minors, and then he'll be a part of the rotation. So it all goes back. What is your grade on the trades? Do you give them an A? Do you give them a B? Do you give them an F? I can't wait to see what the response is going to be for the trades. And again, Casey Mize, there's a guy, I've called him a China doll. But when he's on, he's on. When he's healthy, he seems to be pitching good. He's going to warrant probably, someone's going to give him a 5 or 6 year deal. He's going to be making 9 figures. Now, I know what you're thinking. These owners got a lot of money. They're billionaires. I get it. I think it was a wise move. In the long run, I think it was a wise move for the Tigers to do what they did. Short term, obviously, this is going to hurt. And it does hurt. Because, the Tigers are close. That's why I don't know what to think of it. I am honestly, legitimately, I'm up and down on it. I think ultimately, for the long run, I think Detroit did the right thing. But it still doesn't make it hurt any less right now, because we want Detroit to win right away. That's why I go back and forth on this. I was trying to think, what stance am I going to take on this? And I know that, a lot of people say take a stand on it one way or the other. And honestly, I just don't know how to react on it. I really don't. I'm legitimately go back and forth. Talking with friends, talking with family on it last night. The banner back and forth. I don't know. And so I just come to the realization, we'll wait and see. I do know one thing. I am not going to be one of those people that say, look back on it and say, you know what, we could have. If we would have had him. If we could, would you? And that's your prerogative to do it. I'm not saying you're wrong for doing that. That's just not what I'm going to do. The worst case scenario for Detroit and GM Scott Harris is going to be if Detroit finishes, let's say, 2 to 3 games out of the wild card at the end of the year, because then he's really going to take the heat from the fan base that says, if you would have kept them, we would have been there. And you never know. And that's the problem. Some call it the beauty of sports. That's the problem with sport, with the way it is right now. You just never know. And those of you are probably thinking, yeah, we would have. And then, who knows? We still have a month and a half left to go in the regular season, 50 games. And so that, again, I'm sorry I keep going back and forth on it. I just don't know how I feel on it, because a lot of me wants to win now, but a part of me sees why they did it for the future. I look at what Detroit's got coming up in the future, and I think it looks pretty good. We got Jackson Jobe coming back. He's going to step in more than likely as a starter. He might go in the bullpen at first, but I think he'll be in the rotation. I think River Ryan will be. Now, I know we've got Jack Flaherty coming back. I don't know when he's coming back. They had said that his stint on the IL might be extended. But in the meantime, I know it's going to be tough. And so I don't know. Again, I know I'm wavering back and forth on this. I really am. And there was one thing, though, that I saw yesterday, talking about grading the trades and everything. I was watching the MLB Network right up until the deadline, waiting to see what Detroit would do. Some of these other teams, I look at what Boston did. They gave away a lot of their top prospects to win now. And, I heard a couple of them say on there that, Detroit could have waited longer to make the trade for Skubal. That I agree with. But I don't know if I necessarily agree with they would have got more for it. And you can't compare what Boston gave up for what the Dodgers gave up. And the reason I say that is because Boston, there's no way Boston was going after Skubal. So you don't know what the haul would have been for somebody like Boston in return. So I just don't buy that. I don't buy that argument. We don't know ultimately what the Dodgers would have gave up. And would they have given up a little bit more? Maybe. But, I mean, that's going to be the other question. Could the Tigers gotten a little bit more at the deadline if they waited a couple of more days? I mean, that's going to be something that's going to be bannered back and forth for the rest of the year and into next year. So, I don't know. Again, I know I'm wavering back and forth on this, but it's legitimate. I just don't know how to feel. I sat here this morning thinking, all right, what am I, how do I ultimately feel on this? And I can see both sides. I really can. And it hurts that they gave up two great pitchers. It was tough Sunday morning waking up to that and seeing that. It's like, oh my goodness, the reality set in. And in losing Casey Mize, I'm not as hurt about that one because I just don't trust him. I mean, his injury history, it seems like he gets hurt walking to first base, trying to cover a ground ball at first base. So I do like what Detroit got back in return, though. I think in a couple of years, I think they're gonna be set for another run. I do believe that, but that does nothing for right now. So that's where it kind of hurts a little bit. What do you think? You might think I'm full of it, and a lot of you probably do. But I'm honest when I say I go back and forth on it, and I just don't know ultimately if they were the right moves or the wrong moves. And I guess only time's going to tell. All right, now we talk about it. With losing Mize, with losing Skubal, obviously the rotation's up in the air. As of right now, it hasn't been announced who's going to start tonight for the Tigers. More than likely, it's going to be that ugly word, or ugly two words, bullpen game, which we all know, we talked about it. Detroit's bullpen right now resembles a gas can. So, again, nothing's been announced for the rotation tonight for the Tigers. Who they're going to pitch tonight. First of a 3-game set with Seattle. Tomorrow it's going to be Melton. And then Thursday, again, we don't know who's going to pitch for the Tigers. Could Ty Madden get a spot start? Who knows? We'll wait and see. I just think they may call Jackson Jobe up. It hasn't been announced yet. That's a potential. That's a possibility. I don't know. But, yeah. The rotation's a mess right now, and that's not going to help. Obviously, it doesn't help. So as of right now, it's probably going to be a bullpen start for the Tigers tonight. Melton's going tomorrow. That one pretty much is etched in stone. But then Thursday, it's still out there. And then Friday, it looks like Framber Valdez is going to start against the Giants. Montero on Saturday, and Sunday is up in the air for the Tigers as well. So again, so many questions now with 2 spots in our starting rotation at other places. With Skubal pitching tonight for the Dodgers against the Cubs. And then who knows where Mize is going to pitch. He's probably going to pitch probably tomorrow for the Padres, or who knows, in that organization. So, again, so many questions now with the Tigers. But one thing's for sure, they're still in the race. But, boy, when you look at the pitching rotation, you just don't know how long that's going to last. And one other thing to keep in mind, if you want to see Skubal pitch, he's going to be in person. He's going to be at Comerica Park August 28th, 29th, and 30th. So the rotation's up in the air yet. Still don't know who's going to pitch for the Tigers tonight. So we'll keep an eye on that. All right. Finally, obviously, as we like to do, here we'll take a look at the standings and then take a look at some of your comments, as we like to do every day here on Tigers Daily. The standings right now in Major League Baseball, the Yankees got beat last night. That was a crazy game. So right now, the Tampa Bay Rays, their lead is 3.5 over the Yankees, 5.5 over the Red Sox. The Red Sox now within 2 games of the Yankees in the wild card standings, as crazy as that is. In the Central, the White Sox, again, 3 games up on the Guardians, 4 on the Twins, 5.5 on the Tigers. And in the West, the Astros, their lead is still 2.5 on the Rangers and 2.5 on the Seattle Mariners. So they're tied in the playoff chase as well. And in the National League, the Braves, their lead, 7.5 on the Phillies, 9.5 on the Marlins. The Brewers, their lead, 5.5 now on the Cubs. The Cubs trying to make a move on the Brew Crew. And in the West, the Dodgers, they've lost 4 straight. Their lead now down to 9 over the Diamondbacks, 11 over the Padres. All right, let's take a look at some of the comments here. And again, I can't wait to see what the comments are going to be today on the Mize trade and all the trades in general. So let's take a look at some of the comments. Jim Bro 2100. Too bad we couldn't play the A's 30 more times this year. Yeah, that would be all right, right? Tony M 2513. Pretty sure they've given Job a start in Toledo against Cleveland affiliate. Well, he pitched for the Whitecaps earlier or that same day. I believe it was Sunday. So now it's just a wait and see when he gets called up to the Tigers. I just have a feeling Job's going to get called up still on this West Coast swing. I think you could see him Thursday. My gut is he's probably going to start Sunday in the series finale against San Francisco. I don't have anything to go on that right now, but that's kind of my gut feeling. And let's take a look at Mitchell Drew. His comment, Skubal knows he's worth more than what Detroit can give him. Like most players, it's all about the Benjamins, not for the love of the game. And then Garbage Deplorable Bitter Klinger says, but why can't it be both? You can love the game and also want to get paid. Now, I'm going to go back to that. That's a great comment. I'm going to stop it right there with the comments. And again, so many great comments here, back and forth on it. I don't begrudge Skubal for going. Obviously, you want to take care of yourself and your family, make as much money. That's what it's all about. Yeah, there's loyalty, but there is no loyalty anymore in sports on both sides, management and the players. So I don't begrudge him for it. And again, I don't blame the Dodgers. They're not breaking any rules. Now, we're going to talk about this in the coming days about what this might do for the stance for the CBA. I think you're going to see the owners now, their stance on the salary cap, I think is just gotten stronger. So, but I don't begrudge the Dodgers. They're not breaking the rules. Not only do they have the biggest budget, they also have the best scouting system in all of Major League Baseball. That's evident. So, I don't know. I don't blame Skubal. I'm not happy that he left, obviously, and I would have loved to see him stay in Detroit for his career. But realistically, I don't blame him. All right, a couple other comments here before we go here today. You ignoramuses that don't understand that Detroit is an elite franchise and absolutely deserves and can afford the best. Well, maybe they can. Maybe they can. It's obviously they chose not to shell out the money, which between Skubal and Mize will probably result in probably $500 million. That comment coming from Joseph McLaughlin, 404. Again, most of the comments are on Skubal, and so we're going to get more as well tonight with Mize, with being traded. So, all right, and a little surprise too. Here's one last one from Rampy FMB. Torres won't be traded. Baez needs to be traded. Tigers have a bright future. Yeah, Baez. Nobody's going to want to take Baez's contract, and I agree with Tom Faulkner. His contract was ridiculous. It's good to see him back in the lineup. I think he's changed his swing a little bit, and obviously he's not the wild swinger he used to be at the plate. But yeah, $27.5 million. I'm sure that scared a lot of people off. That's for sure. All right, well, that's going to do it here for this edition of Tigers Daily. Again, the big question, what are your grades on the trade? On the trades. What are your grades on what you think Scott Harris did at the deadline? The one last thing I'll say about Harris is that he took the blame for them not reaching their expectations. He took part of the blame. He took a lot of the blame. And for that, I give him credit for. The jury's still out on him. I'm not saying he's doing a fantastic job, but I give him credit for at least admitting that that he hasn't done the job yet. They haven't done as good as they should. So, again, the main question, I'm going to go back to that. What is your grade on the trades for the Tigers, their activity at the deadline? The grade on what they did. Should they have kept them? Give me your grade. Let me know what you think right here in the comment section at Tigers Daily. All right, that's going to do it for this edition of Tigers Daily for this Tuesday. Again, I want to thank everybody that's taken time out to watch us, however you watch us, here on the network, on your laptops, or your computers, on your iPhones. Thank you again. Until tomorrow, Captain Lou saying keep your heads up, keep your sticks down, keep your feet moving, and as always, keep your minds open. So long.